Shall we begin? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين علهم ينفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا كريم رب العالمين اللهم نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا واسعا والشفاء لكل داء آمين رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, all of you are doing well, hopefully surviving the winds, and hopefully none of you are in the fire zones. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help the innocent people regain their houses back and their properties and bring down rain upon us. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Today we're going over the fourth session of our series on Salahuddin Al-Ayyubi. Hopefully not as heavy as last week. Last week was kind of a little bit heavy. I personally enjoyed it, but it's hard to kind of follow the names and dates and so forth. So what we're going to do here today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start and we're going to introduce Salahuddin finally into the picture of the star of our show. So we'll introduce him a little bit. Not going to talk too much about him. He doesn't play a major role yet. We'll talk about the Fatimid state in Egypt because they are the main introduction to how Salahuddin comes into on the stage. Batiniya Shiaism, they were from Ismaili, but Shiaism kind of understanding where they came from and how they actually hindered a lot of the progress of the Muslims trying to defeat the Crusaders. And we'll talk about them a little bit. Nuruddin al-Zanki's campaign against Egypt. We'll talk about the governor of Jerusalem. His name is Amalric. You know, it sounds like a device. You know, I have an Amalric. I want to use it. But his name was Amalric. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong.
That's why they called him Amalric, because he was a tool.
He was. This guy was. Yeah, he was the king of Jerusalem. We'll talk about him, or I'll put governor, but he was a king. Fatimid leader seeks help from Nuruddin, Salahuddin's childhood, and Shirkuh, which is a very important character in this series here, on the uncle of Salahuddin. So just as a review, if you're always going back to this thing, we talked about after the First Crusades, 4 principalities or regions that the Crusaders had. Of course, Jerusalem is the main one, Tripoli, which is in current day of Lebanon, and then you have Antioch, and then you have Edessa. So we said in 1144 that Edessa fell to Imaduddin Zanki. His name was Zanki or Zanji. He was able to defeat the Crusaders and take over that. So from there on, from 1144 until to the end of the Crusaders, which we're not going to cover, it's all downhill for the Crusaders from there. Obviously, trying to make a whole new area when you live far away in Europe it's not going to work. And so Imaduddin Zanki was able to take this over in 1144. We talked about how he took over Aleppo, and then we spoke about Damascus, which is that's over here. That was taken over by his son Nur ad-Din. His name is Mahmud, but he goes by the title of Nur ad-Din. Okay, on the list of the Crusades, so the first one was the highest point of their campaigning. Got the 4 principalities we just mentioned. The second Crusade is what we mentioned last week, if you guys remember. We have the 2 kings, King Conrad from Germany, King Conrad II, King Louis VII from France. They both get beat pretty badly, coming down in Antioch. And then they try to take over Damascus. It really doesn't work out. They go home with their tail between their legs, and they kind of like embarrassed that they could not get anything and return back home. It's pretty crazy if you think about a king to just go out on all the way down, from where Germany is and France, come all the way down here and just leave your kingdom. Hoping that nobody's going to take it over from you. And the way this works, like some family member is going to take it over from you, or someone's going to steal it from you or plot against you. And so you have a lot of that. When he comes back, people are taking over different areas from him. It's kind of a mess. So, the kings don't really do that too much after that. It's because, it's not a good plan for them. Well, that's how things worked back in the day. And then the Third Crusade happens in 1189. Now, Salahuddin, just as a reminder, takes over or conquers or liberates Jerusalem in 1187. So it's this right here, and that triggers the Third Crusade. So we're at 1144. We're like right here, okay? And we're going to be moving on a little bit. So once again, that's what I kind of just mentioned here. Army of Conrad and Louis VII, who withdrew from Palestine. They go home. The Muslims have some main areas here that they have. Mosul, which is in modern-day Iraq, Aleppo, which is Halab, and we call it in Arabic, Damascus or Damascus, and then Seljuk of Rum, which is all like Turkey pretty much, except Istanbul, what they call Constantinople. Okay, so let's talk about the Fatimid state. Okay, so the Fatimid state, they're ruling in Egypt. They start off in Tunis, in a city called Kairouan. It's a famous city in Tunis. And they're called the Batiniya also because it's kind of like a very like spiritual sect of Shiism where they believe in a lot of like, you know, internal meanings and deep meanings of verses of the Quran, which only their imams could interpret. And you're like, how can you verify that? You know, so anyhow, so that's a good question. Established in 909, lasts about 10 years, not so super long. Ubaydullah al-Mahdi was their leader. He rose to power in Tunis, as I mentioned. He's a crazy guy. I mean, he took advantage of the simpletons and the laymen that are in the farmlands of Tunis. He claimed to be a prophet. He claimed to be part of Allah. You would think, you know, if you're a farmer back in those days and someone tells you this and you're kind of like, oh, wow, that's amazing, right? And so that's another thing really have to worry about us. If we don't know too much and someone tells you something that kind of sounds funny, it's good to verify that for somebody. Oh, you know what? We celebrate this holiday. Oh, we do this, we do that. On this night, you're supposed to read this surah 15 times. You're like, I don't know. Maybe you do, maybe you do. I don't know. Let me find that out, right? And so people kind of believed him, even to the point that people used to pray in the direction wherever he was at. You know, it's really, really bizarre type stuff, the Shiaism war, okay? Killed many Sunnis that he took out, like 4,000 or so in the lands of Tunis, if not more, because of their Sunniism. Obviously, he saw that as a threat. He added words onto the adhan, which is Hayya al-Khayr al-Amal. So you say that after Hayya al-Salah al-Falah. I believe they add that somewhere in there. And if you did not say that in your adhan, guess what? Bad news for you. Probably killed or beat or never see, as in Egypt, they used to say, never see the shams, never see the sun again. Thrown in some dungeon. Go ahead.
Is it Hakim?
No, it's not Hakim at all. No, there's someone else. Yeah. He might be the Fatimi. I don't know who. I'm not too sure. But this is another individual called Ubaydullah al-Mahdi. Okay. Al-Hakim. Let me think about it. Hold on. Because they have multiple names. That's the thing. Probably, yeah. They probably was. Yeah. I'm not gonna go through the whole Fatimid thing though. They all have these titles. Al-Hakim. What really was his real name? All right. Even Ubaydullah is not his name. He definitely was not the Mahdi. But they call him Mahdi because they were hoping to think that they would be the Mahdi. Sunnis did this also. They named their children after Mahdi. If you read the hadith, the Mahdi's real name is not Mahdi. It's Abdullah. It's Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the same name of the Prophet ﷺ, right? But they would do that thinking that their son will be the Mahdi. And I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't advise you to name your children that. Probably won't work out. But if you want to do that, I mean, it's a good name in general, the guided one. Why not? I guess so. The Fatimids entered Jerusalem in 969. That's my dyslexia. You know, I saw the 6 first. All right, so there you go again. 969, right? Goes into Egypt. They established the city of Al-Qahira, Cairo. Okay, so that is when the city was founded. And it was like, wow, that's so old. You have to understand there's cities in Cairo that was 5,000 years old. So this is a baby, right? Like even today, now it's like, oh, Cairo's so old. It's not really compared to a lot of other cities in the world, but nonetheless, we'll take it. So 969, they founded the city called Cairo. There was a previous city called Cairo called Al-Fustat, which was the original capital of Egypt. And that's the one Amr bin al-As, the Sahabi, when he entered into Egypt, he founded. But they made their own capital, obviously, because they're Shia and they don't like the Sunnis. So let's not use a Sunni capital. Let's make our own stamp in Egypt. Okay. So they have their own Khalifa. So they came in with the Abbasid Khalifa dies, or leader dies in Egypt. They see the opportunity, chaos, rush in, right? Make your coup, do what you got to do. And they come in there and they found the city. They also found the city of the University of Azhar, which is the university I graduated from. But it starts off as a Shia institute, but that only lasts for a couple of years. When Salahuddin comes in, it's converted to a Sunni school, a university, if you will. It has continued to be that up to today. All righty. This is cool. This is actually like the wall that's there today in Cairo that they built when you enter the city. I'm kicking myself as I was going over this class. I was like, man, I lived in Egypt and Cairo for 7 years. And I think I went once to this, not even knowing what the heck I was looking at. Because I just wasn't really into like the history. I was more studying, if you will. But I want to show you a picture of that. This is actually the real picture of it. This is actually still there, right? That's still standing there. Obviously, they must have cleaned it up and made it look nice and so forth. But that is the door. Remember, I told you when the city used to be blocked with like walls, and then you have main entrances. Like this is still there today. You can still see the original walls of Cairo. Most of it's broken. And they actually had like this really cool waterway on the top, so they could actually use it as a pipe. They put water and it flows. It was a downhill, and it would go to different areas. So we couldn't do piping on the ground, obviously. They would use it kind of like an aqueduct type thing. Well, let's go back to this. This is obviously just a drawing, probably an AI drawing or something. But anyhow, so yeah, that's a Fatimid state. Okay, so they didn't really like the Shia. They had a bunch. They didn't like the Sunnis, sorry, and they had a bunch of other things. You know, the people in Cairo though are all majority what? Sunnis, and there's a lot of Christians. Majority of the country is probably Christian, honestly. And so they're not like, whoever the leaders are kind of like, okay, just make sure we have bread and food, and we really don't care about, most of us don't care too much about the politics here, because we probably don't have a hand in it, and we really wish to change things, but they play games, and we kind of just make sure we take care of our families, right? So most of the people were kind of like that. They didn't really care too much that they were Shia. They're not going to do a really big revolt, if you will. So this is the Fatimid dynasty. This picture is much better. I know the color coordination on this projector is not too clear, but they were able to cover all this whole area here, which goes up to Tunis, and then over to Maghreb, to Morocco. Okay, so they had a lot of area all the way down to Mecca and Medina. Okay, Mecca and Medina, which is very good and very the wisdom of the Muslim leaders, they did not made their capital in Mecca and Medina. You would think that would be the place where the Prophet was in Medina. But Ali radiallahu anh, fourth Caliph of Islam, he moved the capital out of Medina to Baghdad, or was it Kufa? Probably Kufa, I think. And that was a smart move, because you don't want wars going on in these areas. It's very sacred. You want people to pray there, not have to worry about going there and getting killed or anything like that. So it was pretty easy to take over these areas, because people didn't want to fight in front of the Kaaba and the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Masjid Nabawi, etc. Right? That's not a good thing to do. So they were able to take this over. And then obviously they took Jerusalem, and they had some other areas above that. That's the extent of the Fatimid Empire. Remember, they only lasted 10 years. It wasn't like a massive empire. Well, it's massive, but a very long-lasting empire. Okay. Like anyone that you learned so far in this class, if you're the leader of any empire, someone's going to kill you, or your brother's going to turn your back on you, or someone's going to poison you. Something's going to happen. And unfortunately, that's how things happen. Okay. The Fatimid state, they were trying to attempt to have good relations with Nur-ad-Din so they could focus on the Crusaders, which is good. But Nur-ad-Din, he's up in Aleppo, right? He's up in Halab, right? Going back to this. And he's taking care of Damascus. He's worried about his own property, so he really doesn't make too much alliances with them, right? Also maybe because they're Shia, but nonetheless, he doesn't really have time. He's really busy about his own property and kingdom being attacked from outsiders, okay? Delegation of gifts were sent to them, trying to make some relationships. 1153 is really important, because that is when Ascalon, or Ascalon, which is what now unfortunately it's occupied by Israel, loses the Fatima and lose control of that. So this is Ascalon right here. I don't know if everyone ever heard of the main commentator of Sahih Bukhari. His name was Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, right? He was from Ascalon. He wrote, I don't know, the one I have at home is probably a 10-volume, if not 15-volume commentary in every single hadith of Sahih Bukhari. It's like the classical reference. If you want to look up a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, you go to Ibn Hajar, called Fath al-Bari. His book is called Fath al-Bari, Sharh Sahih Bukhari. So he was from Ascalon. A little side note. Maybe you care, maybe you don't care. I don't know, but it was good. Okay, so this Ascalon, and then Gaza is right below it. Okay, so right now, Ashkelon is like the closest Israeli town to Gaza. So they get a lot of rockets fired at them because they're the closest ones. And so by that time, the Fatimids owned this. That was kind of like the entrance to take over Egypt. If one cis goes down, then pretty much the door enters over there. Why? Let me look at another picture here. Go back to Jerusalem. Look at the Gaza here. You see what's around here? Nobody lives there. Nobody wants to live there, right? There's nothing there really. It's all sand. You get some, foliage here. So once you take over Ascalon, which is over here, then the armies will just come over to Egypt. So once that breaks, it's bad news, okay? And so, going back here, so in 1153, the Fatimids get beat down by the Crusaders. I believe it's Amaric also. That takes them over, and they now take over Ascalon, okay? Which is, like I said, now the Fatimid Empire is under alert that the Crusaders are probably going to show up on their doorsteps pretty soon. Also, Egypt had a lot of internal conflicts. This is just an example of this, which I thought was wild. That the vizier, you can say wazir. In Persian, they don't have a W sound, so they say vizier, whatever you want to choose. Okay, so the vizier of Egypt at that time, of the Fatimid Empire, were pretty much the main ruler. Okay, the king really didn't do too much. The Khalifa didn't really do much, right? If you ever go back, this is a little side note, and I'll credit this to Dr. Roy Casagrande's lecture. If you ever played chess, you always wonder why the king only can move one space, and the queen could like just go right across the board. Pretty wild, right? So before that, I used to be the wazir, and he kind of moved like a rook. But the king really goes move on because he really didn't do much. The wazir really controls everything, right? And then they changed the pieces later on. There's a good history about chess you could look up, but I don't want to bore you more. But anyhow, it's good. You go home and tell that to your family. We're like, wow, you're so smart. But anyhow, all right. So the wazir is really the leader in Egypt. The Khalifa, the Shia Fatimid Khalifa, is kind of like the one that's kind of like, you have a prime minister and then you have the really president. One just sits there and kind of just gets everyone to give him tea and coffee. The other one actually runs the country. It's almost like that to extent. Or the King of England. Like, I don't know what he does, honestly.
When does that happen? Like, shouldn't it be like the head of state should also be like the mom and everything?
Yeah, that's true. But what happens, it's almost like the royal family really doesn't do nothing. Right. And then your vizier, which ends up being more of the military general that controls the army, is everyone's scared of because he controls the army. Like right now, you can give an example like Pakistan. Like whoever controls the army is kind of really the one that runs the country. You can have a prime minister and president, but though if they'd say something bad to that general, you're going to get assassinated probably or get kicked out, right? That's how it kind of works. So, and interesting in the Fatimid Empire, the vizier was sometimes Christian. He was Sunni sometimes, and he was Shia all the time. It was kind of interesting, right? They're really, really big about you had to be Shia, even though it was a Shia empire. Okay, his name was Ibn Salar. Okay, and he was killed by his stepson's son. I guess that's like your step grandson. I guess I don't know what you would call that. His name was Nasser. Okay, why? Because other family members wanted the throne. So he killed him. And then Nasser went in there and then killed the Khalifa, Al-Zafir, which he takes out the vizier, he takes out the Khalifa, and then puts someone else in power. Okay, so you can see like the craziness that was kind of going on at that time. People just getting taken out. They're inviting to dinners, and then people would jump on them and kill them, and then make up a story that they got killed by something else. It was it's chaotic times, subhanAllah, at that time. Okay. We talked about this, about Ascalon going down. Okay, this is super significant here. So this is where everything turns, and this is where Salahuddin kind of shows up in the picture, and where the Fatimid Empire is already crumbling already. From what I told you here about viziers and caliphs being killed and so forth. 1163, there is a vizier. His name is Shawar. Okay, not Shalwar, but Shawar. Okay, Ibn Mujir. So he was the vizier of the Fatimid Empire for about 9 months. Okay. And there's a guy named Dirgham. Dirgham was his homie at one time. They were friends. They took out another wazir so Shalwar could become in power. 9 months later, Dirgham is wondering, like, hey, that could have been me. So what did he do? He overthrows Shalwar, makes a coup, and kicks him out. And say, guess what? I'm running the country now. We were close, but I want power too. So I don't like you, even though we're friends after a while, right? But I don't like you anymore. Okay. What does Shalwar do? Okay, this is the Fatimid Empire. Okay. They go all the way to Damascus, and who's there? Nuruddin Zenki. Okay. Say, Nuruddin, I know we're not really close, but guess what? I got a situation on my hands, right? I have this guy that my friend, I thought he was my friend. That Dirham, kicked me out. Can you come to Egypt and bring your army? I lost my position and take this guy out. I know you're different empires. You have the Zankian Empire, we're the Fatimids. But I will give you 1/3 of the Egypt's income. Now, I don't want you guys to understand what do you mean by that. Egypt were extremely wealthy. You have the Nile River, you have a lot of produce. Okay, that river just bring a lot of barakah to the land up to today. Okay, 1/3 of the annual income was a treasure. Nuruddin could take that money and probably buy Jerusalem with it. He wouldn't even have to fight. Okay, and he said, you know what? I will pay for the salary of your soldiers if they come, and I will make you the deputy in Egypt. Okay, I don't know about you, but from what you guys learned from this class so far, do you think he's gonna follow through with any of his agreements? I don't know. I don't know why you would buy it. I wouldn't buy into it, honestly. I mean, I only went. We've been 4 classes in. I wouldn't trust anybody if they would tell me they're going to bring a cup of water to me in 5 minutes. I would think that the person would probably never come. Right? It's just like there's no loyalty. Just watch your back and don't trust kind of anybody. So that's crazy times. And so Shalwar says, "Hey, please do this, Nuruddin." Nuruddin has a minister named Shirkul Shahdi. Okay, Shirku is the uncle of Salahuddin. Shirku is a Kurd. Nuruddin is a Zangid, right? Different family. But Shirku was extremely loyal to Nuruddin, even though they're different family members. If you guys remember, Imaduddin, Nuruddin's father, put Salahuddin's father, Ayyub, in care of one of the fortresses called Baalbek, if you guys remember from last week. So the Ayyubis and the Zankids were like really, really close. They liked each other. They're honest. They believed it. They knew they were fighting against the Crusades. They saw eye to eye, and they're good friends in that way. I know. I changed the story right there. Nobody was good friends. This is like one of the rare exceptions. Okay. Shirku was super excited about going to Egypt. This guy was more into war. Nuruddin was, mashallah, he was like a really good, mashallah, good Muslim. Didn't drink. Yeah, and he prayed a lot, mashallah, like as a Muslim should do. Shirku was Muslim, but he had a little issues. More about he liked fighting. He was missing an eye from wars that he fought. He was more like, is there a fight? Where can I participate? He was one of those guys, you know what I mean? I just love kind of this trouble like a bully, right? You need those kind of people in the community. If any of you guys are one of those, let me know. We could sign you guys up for security here at the masjid, inshallah. Right? So Shirku was like, you know what? Hey, I'm down for this. Going to Egypt, this is a dream for me. Nuruddin is like, hey, go ahead, do it. Okay. So Nuruddin agrees that, hey, you give me all this, Shawar. I will help you get back into power in Egypt. I'll send my army, Shirku, my general, with an army from the Zankid Empire to come and fight with you to get your power back, to take this Dirgham out of his position. Dirgham, you always have spies. You have to know what's going on. He's aware that Nuruddin's army is coming down with Shirku to put back Shalwar. Okay. So Dirgham obviously needs an army. His army's okay. So what does he do? Goes to the Crusaders in Jerusalem, Almoric. So Almoric, guess what? You want to take Egypt? I know everyone wants Egypt because it's like just a bigger treasure chest. Hey, there's an army coming. I need your protection. I'll give you money and everything, blah, blah, blah. Help me defend off Nuruddin. You don't like Nuruddin either because he's probably going to come and take Jerusalem one of these days either. So it's kind of good for both of us. If we could take him out of the picture and fight him, his army, then you scratch my back, I scratch your back, and we don't have to worry about him. So this is a Muslim general, Dirgham, okay, in Egypt, that is working with the Crusades to fight against Nuruddin. Today, when we look at him, we see what's going on in Gaza. were like, why are the Egyptians not open up Rafah? Just open the door. Let the Palestinians come through. They can go to the hospitals. That's like and the Egyptians control the Rafah crossing. But guess what? Because of agreements with Israel and other things, then they don't do it. Look at this here. There's an army coming down, and what? They go to the Crusaders, make alliance with them against other Muslims, right? It's crazy like this, right? The Jordanians sitting there, not doing nothing. Iran sending missiles over, they're the ones blocking it, so it doesn't go to Israel, right? Saudis are doing what Saudis do, build high buildings, right? That's pretty much what they're doing right now, right? And so you have this. It's kind of interesting to understand what's kind of going on today. Okay? Everyone wants their empire and their money and their position. Interesting, right? That's why I never ask for leadership. That's better you stay quiet. If Allah puts you in there, alhamdulillah. But if not, don't raise your hand for it. I mean, honestly, it's probably better for you. Sometimes it's needed, though. Like Yusuf alayhi salam, he had to jump in, right? But he's also a prophet. So, but anyhow.
Wait, so I have a question. So, like, everybody wanted Egypt at this time. Was it because of the
wealth?
Oh, wealth. Okay.
Extremely wealth. I wish I could put a number on it, like what it would be, like the GDP, what it would be today. It was everyone just wanted that money from it. It was just a big heap of money that if you get there, the products, the money you'll get from it, it will be amazing, right? And so here comes Dirham, the leader in Egypt, working with the Crusades against the army. So Dirham promises Amalric, the king of the Crusaders in Jerusalem, to give you annual tribute. Every year we'll give you a tax. We'll send money for you guys. And Egypt will become a vassal of the state of the Crusaders. A vassal state pretty means that you tell us what to do and we answer you. So basically, you're kind of like us. You're like the president. We're like a state, if you will, right? We're just one state of it. We're not the country. You're the country. So we're just a state under you. So he's willing to sign off Egypt like that, just to make sure he stays in power. Shirkuh pulls his 17-year-old nephew by the name of Yusuf ibn Ayyub, better known as Salahuddin. And this 17-year-old nephew wasn't really super excited about going into a big war. He's like, I kind of really don't want to go. Shirkuh's like, you're going with me, right? Good to have good uncles like that. It pulls you into wars and stuff. And it has one eye. So you always have to have one of those in your family, right? And so he takes Yusuf, Salahuddin, you're coming with me, you're joining the army, right? Let's go, okay? So Shirkuh goes, has a problem to get to. How do you get from Damascus over to Cairo without going in the yellow? Because the yellow is what? Crusader states. If you have a Muslim coming with your army through here, the Crusaders are like, hey, how you doing? They're not going to wave at you. They're going to probably attack you. And you're probably going to get killed, or you're going to have another war before you get to Cairo. You might lose half your soldiers or something. It's not a good deal, right? But Shirkuh managed to get through here. I don't know the exact route, nonetheless, and get out and come to Cairo that way. If you look back if I go back to the Google picture of that, you don't really want to go down this area here. Look here. It's just like, you're going to die. This is the reason why the Jews were sent here for 40 years to walk around here. It was a punishment, right? There was no water. There's not much, right? The Sinai Peninsula, that's why you see no green there. No one lives there really. Bedouins and so forth like that, okay? So you have to stay by the coast here, but if you do, might get intercepted, okay? Where am I at? Okay. So he has to go through Crusaders line. Nur ad-Din creates a distraction for the Crusaders and attacks the Crusaders in Jerusalem. So he said, you know what? You're coming down here, and they might come and get you. Over here is Damascus. He comes down here and starts fighting the Crusaders not in Jerusalem, because you'll get taken away if he does that, but just outside the outskirts of Jerusalem. So Amalric, even though he's coming down with his army to help out Dirgham, he has to worry about, hey, Jerusalem might get taken over by Nur ad-Din. Nur ad-Din might come and take his army there. So he does that so the Crusaders can't send more reinforcements down here to take out Shirkuh, right? So let's see the smartness of a leader, a military leader, right? So Shawar seeks help from Amalric to defeat Shirkuh. Where am I at? Is this the one I was at? No, over here. Okay. Shirkuh beats the Crusader army to Egypt, gets there before them. Dirgham sends an army out, and they are defeated. Shirkuh reaches Cairo, takes out Dirgham, gets Shalwar, says, hey, you're back into power. Like we did it with you, right? We're good. Remember that deal? You give us 1/3 of the profit. Where you're going to make us I'm your deputy. Like, yeah, don't worry. Good. Thank you for putting me back into power, right? So Shirkuh comes out to defend the capital and is defeated. He's killed. So Shirkuh does a great job, takes over Cairo, puts Shalwar back in there. What happens? Shalwar goes back there, and the first thing he says, oh, Shirkuh, go outside the city. Yeah, put your tents. You guys rest. Close the door, says, you know what? We're not giving you anything. 1/3? That was a joke. I know you're far from Damascus, but where are you going to go now, buddy? Right? So the joke's on you. I don't know. If I was sure, I would have thought that would happen a long time ago, right? I mean, I could almost guess that was going to happen. If I was him, I would have stayed in the city and followed him wherever he goes until he gives me money. But if I had to use a bathroom, I would hold it. I mean, I would not lose sight of this man, because I feel like if I go somewhere else, I'll get shot in the head with an arrow or something, right? But guess what? That's what happens, right? So the ex-treasurer breaks the deal, no money, orders Shirkuh out of Egypt, get out here, get your army out, closes the door, you're gone. Now, he has a big army. But what does Shalwar know? Shalwar knows that Amalric is coming, right? The Crusaders are coming, remember? Because they'll come ask them, but they're just late. So Shalwar goes, hey, Amalric, remember we didn't like each other, but guess what? We're cool now. I have Shirkuh here. He's causing issues. Can you come, and as you're coming, take him out from outside my gates? I'm in power now, right? Crazy, okay? So he seeks help from Amalric to defeat Shirkuh. Amalric is he's just down for anybody who gives him money. I'll fight and help you. He doesn't really have no loyalty to anyone. If you're Christian, Muslim, whatever. How does that even work? I don't know, right? Amalric hosts council and decides to set off to Egypt. Stops at the town of, here we go, of Faqus. Okay, so here's Faqus here. Let me see this one here. Here's Cairo. Okay, so this is where everything is going down. This is where Shalwar's put in power. This is where Shirkuh helped put in power. Got locked out of the gates. Here comes the Crusader army. They stop there. They send word to Shalwar. Hey, what's going on? Where is Shirkuh? Shirkuh's trying to get out. He stops here and it's called Bilbis. It's a city called Bilbis. There's a fortress there. He goes in there, takes over that fortress, and just sits there. He's like, what am I going to do, man? I got Crusaders coming here, and I got Shalwar and his army coming up to get me. They're going to come. And they outnumber them by 10-1. It's not going to be good. I don't have much supplies. I just traveled all the way from Damascus. Okay. So he sets up shop there. Just kind of gets to the fortress, locks the gates, and waits there for a bit. Okay. They lay siege to Shirkuh fortress for 3 months. Imagine that, 3 months, and people shooting, trying to break your door, and you're trying to fight back to them. Okay. What happens there, Nur-ad-Din, let's go back to Nur-ad-Din. This is so interesting stuff. I hope you guys are enjoying it like much I'm enjoying it, but anyhow. Okay. So let's go back over here. Okay. Nur-ad-Din, he's attacking right here by Jerusalem, right? Just to make sure that this is Cairo over here. They're all stuck over here. That Amalric knows that his city might be taken. Remember, he's 3 months holding Shirkuh, right? His general in this area here. What happens is that Nur-ad-Din ends up taking a little fort. Not Jerusalem, but a fort outside of Jerusalem, where the Crusaders were. Now, you understand, Crusaders were pretty much Vikings. Yeah, some of you guys know football, right? You know, like the Viking mascot. Okay. Blonde hair with those big braids and stuff, blue eyes, snow, complexion, right? People, they look different. Okay. So he was able to take a fortress over there, Nur-ad-Din. Look at this, amazing. He takes over this fort. He gets some of the Crusaders that he captures, cuts off their braids, their hair. Okay. Takes their banner, ties up their hair together like a rope, gives it to one of the guys here, says, go and help Shirkuh. Take this to him. You go, what the heck's going on? Exactly. All right. Go and help him, if you will. So he goes in here. Where we go? Right here, right? He comes down with this box of braided hair that's all tied up together and the flag of the Crusaders of Jerusalem. Somehow he makes it into the fort. Remember, Shalwar's here with an army. The Crusaders come down and they're sieging this area for 3 months. Shirkuh's like, what is this? He's like, Nur-ad-Din sent this to you. He opens up, sees a bunch of blonde hair tied up together and banners. Shirkuh goes outside the walls of the fort, hangs it over, and says, "This is what we just did to you, army in Palestine." Al-Mubarak is like, "What the heck? First of all, how did you even get through our army to get inside the city? We can't even get into the city. Who did that in the first place?" And they show their banners. Like, how did you even get our banners? Al-Mubarak gets a little disheartened now. He's like, "What? Is this really happening in Jerusalem? About to lose our land?" So what does he do? "I'm out of here. The siege is over. Shalwar, I'm not going to help you anymore. I'm going to leave Shirkuh." They make agreement at the end where I'll make an agreement to Shirkuh that we will both leave. Hey, let's do this. You go back to Damascus, I go back to Jerusalem, and let's get out of here. Okay? Because I'm scared that Jerusalem is getting taken over. You've been here for 3 months, you probably have no water or food anyhow. So just go. Let's go if you will. Okay. So they decide that Al-Mubarak goes back over to Jerusalem. Shirkuh takes his army and they go back. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, you go first and I'll go first. We'll just kind of make sure we leave. Like, how does that even work? Right? They said the army is like walked parallel back up to like Jerusalem, and then one continues to Damascus. Nobody like throws a rock at each other or something like that. That's kind of interesting. Like, they just leave. And Shalwar is like, "Hey, this is great. The Nur ad-Din's army is gone. The Crusaders are gone, and I'm back in Cairo sitting on a chair perfect. Nobody bothers me." So he kind of wins out at the end, right? He gets to have both armies leave and remain in power untouched for 2 years. Crazy times, right? That's amazing, right? But this is the first time that Salahuddin is actually like in a main military exercise, especially on this kind of order going into Egypt, okay? So this happens here. The Crusaders on the Fatimid army, they go back. Shalwar comes back into power. What happens after that? Nur ad-Din's power in the region gains new respect. They're like, "Wow, man, Nur ad-Din's army went to Egypt and they're able to do this, and they're able to take out their governor of Egypt and put back Shalwar." People are like, "Wow, Nur ad-Din is..." The Seljuk Empire is falling apart. Let me go back to this really quick. Take that picture there. So the Seljuk Empire here is kind of falling apart because they have all bunch of mess. So Nur ad-Din, as he has Edessa, he has Aleppo, he has Damascus, is now making his own thing now, and everyone's giving him clout that he went to Egypt and he was able to do this in Cairo, right? And the Seljuk Empire is going down, so the Zangid Empire is pretty much now taking over this untouched. No one's even challenging them from the Muslims, if you will, okay? So that's happening there. So he gets a lot of clout for doing what he did. Shirkuh has great aspirations to go back to Egypt again. He's like, "I want to go back there and do that again." You know what I mean? What they did to me was wrong. And remember, he's all about, war and so forth, okay? Shalwar starts oppressing people, takes people's wealth back in Egypt as a Fatimid leader. The Fatimid Khalifa, right, Al-Adid, sends a note to Nur ad-Din now and says, "Hey, Shalwar I can handle this guy. Okay, he's the wazir. Remember, he has more power than the Khalifa. Can you come again, another army, and help me and take him out?" It's just so crazy how things works like that, right? So he's asking them to go back. Nur ad-Din in 1169 decides to send another army to Egypt. Okay, with who? With Salahuddin and Shirkuh to help get Shalwar out of power and take over Egypt. Okay, that's what they want. Why does the Nur ad-Din want Egypt so much for? Well, if you look here, if you have Aleppo and you have Damascus and you have Cairo, what's in between there? Jerusalem. And you could just squeeze from here and squeeze from there, and you will take down Jerusalem and you'll get Palestine back. That is the wisdom behind it. But if you can get them to do that, the Fatimids are just being best friends with Al-Mubarak all the time and the Crusaders. So they're a team together. So what happened, Nur ad-Din sees that as a treachery against the Muslim Ummah, right? So he wants to take this. If he does that, that'll be the next step. That'll be the next step that kind of goes on there, right? One thing I want you guys to learn about this is that, especially with Gone Today, it's not about, this take over Israel and like the Israelis have to go and this is to defeat them. That's true. Hopefully that works very well. But usually what happens before that, you're seeing right here, it's not Nur ad-Din just going to Jerusalem and just taking out Al-Mubarak, which he probably maybe can do. He's taking out what? The munafiqun, the hypocrites, the ones who are Muslim, but they're not really Muslim by face, right? Only by face, sorry. In their heart, they're doing something else. you have to clean up your backyard a little bit before you go into something else, right? So here we see like what happened to Syria right now, alhamdulillah, like, you know, we have this clearing out of Bashar al-Assad, alhamdulillah, right? But then, so you got the munafiqun, they said they're Muslim, but they're working with everyone else against the Muslims. And they're also killing Muslims at the same time. So take them out. And you know, there's a lot more cleaning that needs to go. I'm not even going to allude to what needs to be cleaned, but I think you guys probably all know, right? And it's not just in this area here, modern day. We have stuff going on in Pakistan. We have things going on in Turkey. We have things going on in different areas. So you really have to clean up your backyard good, because when you go in and fight the enemy, you don't have to worry about somebody throwing a knife in the back of your head, right? And so you got to make sure you got your team ready too. Everyone understands that. And then you go in for the prize, right? And so that's what Nur al-Din's also thinking about. That the Fatimids, even though we understand they're Shia, they're a different sect, but they're also like best friends with the Crusaders at the time. They keep on calling Amaric over, like if they're like, you know, like the same religion, right? But to protect their lands. So something's going on there, right? So that's what, it's a good point to understand that. Okay. The second campaign in Egypt from Nur al-Din al-Zenki. Okay. So Shirkuh leads another army once again with Salahuddin, again to go with an army of 2,000 men. Now, 2,000 men is not like a big army. Sounds like a lot. But when you're going against 10,000 or 100,000 in a city, it's not gonna, it's not gonna be a big one. But Nur al-Din says, you know what, you want to go ahead. He sends them 2,000. You understand that it's important. They all have horsemen, so a little bit more than just a foot infantry. The threat of the Crusaders attacking them on the route was another concern once again. How to go from there to Cairo, going through the Crusaders' lands. Also, there was a lot of sandstorms that happened, so you have to worry about everything else, right? You have this army that's walking in a desert. Sandstorm happened, kills like some of their men, right? They lose some of their provisions, but the morale is, guys, keep trucking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Let's go. Okay. And so they go. Once again, Shalwar, what does he do? Calls on Al-Murik, right? From Jerusalem, the king of Jerusalem. Hey, we heard that Nur al-Din sending another army to come and take my land. Al-Murik, I know you want it also. Let's be best friends again. I will give you a good amount of money if that, I don't think I put it here. I think it was 40,000 dirhams every year. If you come and defend Shirkuh and the Zangin army. If you could come and do that for me, then guess what? I'll pay you this money off, okay? Al-Murik sees the Zangi's control of Egypt that would bring down his kingdom. So he doesn't want that also, because he knows that once I just mentioned right here, that if they take this over, then Al-Murik knows that he's gonna lose his kingdom. So that's why he wants to protect Cairo also with the Fatimids. So it's all like they're all buddy with all these things, if you will, okay? Shirkuh went southwest of Cairo. If I go back here, I don't have a good map of Cairo. Oh, there we go, not bad. So Shirkuh comes in here. Instead of going to Cairo, he goes down here, like really, really far. Also, what he does something interesting. When he gets to Cairo, let's go back to that map again. When he gets to Cairo, remember I told you the old city of Cairo was called Fustat, where Amr bin As started it. He goes, come here, he doesn't go to the main Cairo, goes down to Fustat, which is down here, tells everyone to leave, and then burns the city down. Okay. Why does he do that for? When Al-Murik hears that, he sent a sign to him like, hey man, if you're going to come and take the city, I'll burn the whole thing for you. You will get nothing from the city, right? And he doesn't care too much, but that's going to also make Shalwar really upset. He does that as a distraction to make sure that it's a war tactic. Yeah, 100% it's a war tactic. Yeah, Alhamdulillah, told the people I'll leave out. He wasn't like trying to burn the people or anything, right? But to do that, so guess what? Shalwar and Cairo is like, hey, my city's getting burnt down. Makes them want to focus there. Makes Al-Murik come quicker. They think that Shalwar will go to Cairo and burn everything down there, the palaces and all that stuff that's in there. It's going to go down. So let me race there a little bit more. Tire out your soldiers, right? Before they even get there. It's another wisdom of that. Were you going to say something on Salim? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. So he goes down there. He goes down. This is like, you can see the Nile here, where the greenery is, because obviously of where the plants grow. And he was able to go all the way really deep here, crosses over to the Nile, and comes up to this area called Giza. That's where the pyramids are at. Okay. Well, there's multiple pyramids anyhow. So he goes up to Giza and comes here. Okay. But as he's there, there's a place called Babain where he stops at. Okay. And I think that's going to be right here. Yeah, Shirkuh moves so. Oh, yeah, there you go. Shirkuh's army moves so fast, but Shawar didn't even know that he was in the city. Didn't even know that he was in the town. This is a general. You have 2,000 soldiers, so you can move a little bit faster than you have in 10,000. Everyone taking breaks. It's hard to move everyone. But yeah, that's one thing with a smaller army, you get to go faster, right? Shawar doesn't even know that they're there. Finds out someone tells him you burnt the city down. What's going on? He tells Amalric, I'll pay you 4,000 dinars, which I'm not too sure what the equivalent of that money is today, but probably a lot. Okay. And paid of it 2,000 up front. So he's getting money right now. It's not like, yeah, after you help me and then I'll give you the money. Most likely he's going to turn his back on him. So he gives them the money. They go to this place called Battle of Babain, right? Down in the desert there. He stops there. Shirkuh's army is Shirkuh, we love you. We've been traveling for a long time. We only got 2,000. They have 10,000 soldiers. We're outnumbered by 5 to 1 or even more than that. Let's go back to Damascus. We had a good run. Let's just go back. Shirkuh gives them an pep talk. There's a couple of people that are in there said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. Let's defeat this army. These are corrupt people. Obviously the Christians are there, crusaders, etc. And they said, what, let's go. And he divides his army up into 3 flanks. Puts Salahuddin in charge of one of them. He's off to the right. And he puts all the wealth in the middle of the middle flank, because he knows that the Crusader army is going to think that he's in the middle and trying to kill him. They put all the wealth there because once they get to it, they'll see it and guess what? Celebrate, take part of it, and then you attack them while they think that they got all the wealth. So this is military strategy here. Okay. Shirkuh made an army into 3 flanks with Salahuddin. So Salahuddin actually has command here. He's not just I'm over there in the back, I get water for the soldiers. He's fighting, right? He's getting some very good experience here. Both armies have a lot of losses. Some say that Shirkuh's army really defeated a lot of the Crusaders, right? Crusaders get their, they lick their wounds. They go back to Cairo. So go back to this picture here, right? They're way down there. They come back here. Shirkuh, amazing. As the Crusaders are going back here with Shawar after the battle, Shirkuh goes all the way up to Alexandria in the same time almost as they come back to Cairo. He only had 2,000 soldiers. He runs as quick as he can and takes over this port here. Okay. Alexander's named after Alexander the Great, right? From the Greek Empire. And so takes that area there. There's a lot of wealth there because that's where the Nile kind of goes to also. It splits. Okay. And gets that area there. There's a fort there. Goes in the fort, locks the doors, takes over the city, and gets wealth from the people, and now has conquered Alexander. Shawar is what just happened to my empire? I have one of the major cities, port cities are now gone because he's obviously Shirkuh is making very, very quick moves here. Now I'm trying to make sure where I'm at here. Okay, there we go. So there you go. Shirkuh rushes all the way up to now to go to the city. This will lead to the Crusaders laying siege to Alexandria. They lay siege there once again. Let me go back to the picture here. They lay siege here for about multiple months. Stalemate. Shirkuh at nighttime takes his army and goes through the Crusaders' camp, come to the other sides, attacks them from the other sides. They're both running out of supplies. Shirkuh knows he has some supplies also. And at the end, they do the same thing, same agreement. Amalric, if you leave, I'll leave. And they do that thing again. And they both leave and they go back all the way over here. Shawar stays in power once again. Okay. It's crazy how they do that. I don't know how that works. You leave and I leave and we kind of agree to that. Okay. But that's what happens there. They leave to Alexandria, they both leave and they both go back. And that is in 1167. 1187 is when Jerusalem falls. So we're only 20 years away. Okay. Salahuddin gets a lot of experience about what's going on there, diplomacy, military strategy, right? And you kind of see him set up that the Zankian army or Nuruddin's army is coming to Egypt multiple times. The Fatimid Empire is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and that's going to lead to them falling in the next battle there. I'm going to stop there because I'm not going to go into the next battle that happens after that. So there's going to be another campaign where Shirkuh will come again 3rd time with Salahuddin and end up taking over Cairo. Okay, we'll go over that next week. Amalric, guess what? Shows up on the scene again. Amalric invades Egypt 5 times, and this guy cannot get it, which is good, alhamdulillah. First time he goes to this area here. It's a little kind of cool story. Goes to this area here, Bilbas, set stage there, trying to take over Egypt from Shawar. What happens is that they don't know that there's annual floods that happens in Egypt before they built the dam in Aswan. And so as he's there, they have the army there, they're laying siege to it. All Shawar does is open the dikes from the Nile River. It floods the Crusader army. They're on the field, water's like coming up to their knees now. They don't know what to do, and they have to go back, right? It's amazing how they there's wars at those times. But Amalric he tries it about 4 or 5 times to get into Egypt, never makes it. Little thing about him. Oh, so his elder brother was Baldwin III. I think I messed up last week. I said he was the one with leprosy. It wasn't true. It's Baldwin the fourth that has it. So his elder brother, Baldwin III. Baldwin III was the king of Jerusalem. He ends up dying, right? He comes into as being the king in 1163. In 1164, he dies, and his successor, Baldwin the fourth, which is his son, even though he named it after his brother's name, becomes a king. That's where Salahuddin has to deal with. I don't know if you guys going back to Kingdom of Heaven, if you watch the movie. You know, I told you guys don't watch the movie, but I keep on referencing it. He's the one that has like leprosy, like he has to wear like a mask, because I don't know if you ever seen people with leprosy back in those days. It like eats at your skin, and you're like, you don't look very pleasant, if you will. So, and he's like dying. He's like really, really sick. Okay. Because he's born with that affliction on him. But he becomes the king, and Salahuddin comes and gives him, he sends his doctors to help him. Salahuddin was on another side of the story. So he's Baldwin the fourth is going to come in and be the king of Jerusalem at that time. So this is a little bit about Amalric. I'm going to do really quick about Salahuddin, since he's on the stage now. We kind of jump. We really didn't talk too much about his early childhood. The problem that no one knew Salahuddin was going to become Salahuddin when he was 4 years old, or 5 years old, or 6 years old. So there's not really much reports about him, what he did. Kind of just like the Prophet ﷺ. No one knew that he was going to become a prophet. So what did he do when he was 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old? Like, we only have small stories, right? No one knew he was going to become a prophet. And so Salahuddin, born in Tikrit, a town in Iraq, right? He is Kurd. There's still Kurdish people in Iraq now, right? Locates the Mosul. Then he goes to his father's Najmuddin, or his name is Ayyub. Everyone has a Deen name, remember I told you that? So his name's Ayyub, right? He became the military general for Imaduddin and Nuruddin. Okay, so obviously if your dad's a general in their army, you're growing up, you're gonna learn these things. That's probably a talk of the dinner table every night. So you're probably gonna grow up in this thing also. But also he was very muttaqi, and a very person that, like, had taqwa, loved Islam. He memorized the Quran at a young age. He was an excellent horse rider. He loved horses and riding horses, which is very important being a military general. Spent teenage years in Damascus with his family. He studied fiqh, hadith, Arabic language, poetry. That was one of his passions, is Islamic studies. But then learned a lot of military strategy from the Zengid, Imaduddin, and Nuruddin also. And of course, we all know that his uncle, Shirkuh, is the one that brought him into this whole, like, on the battle scene and getting there and fighting and so forth. Really wasn't his dad too much, but he grew up with his dad, obviously being a general. And that's where he kind of comes up, right? And I told you he was 17 years old when they went into Egypt the first time, right? And you're going to see that then the second time he comes, he's going to take over power in Egypt. So we will stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Just going to go back on the timeline here to see where we're stopping. So we're about right here in 1168, 69. And when he takes over Egypt in Jerusalem in 1187. Next week's class, inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about how Shirkuh comes to Egypt for a third time. And that's when they take over the Fatimiid Empire and take over Cairo. And that is when Salahuddin becomes the vizier of Cairo and then leads from there. Shirkuh goes back. to Damascus, and he's the one in charge of Cairo. And then from there, he bills a lot. Okay. And so that's where we'll lead up to our session next Sunday. A lot of information, like always, is history. That's how history kind of works. Any questions or comments from anybody?
Shower bear looks like Zelensky.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So many times.
yeah.
Goes back on his words.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. SubhanAllah. Yeah.
And every time he sells it again.
I don't know if I would have met that Shawar and he would tell me anything. I would pretty much not trust he'll come through it. I don't know why people would, but I think these leaders, Shirk with them, kind of knew. But it's just, let's work with them so we get into Egypt, and then we kind of work out. And maybe he was outsmarted the first time when they told him to get out, and he got caught outside. You know what I mean? They were maybe a little bit too gullible, or maybe just caught him off guard. You know what I mean? And Nuruddin and all these guys, like I said, they were like very like muttaqi. Nuruddin didn't live in a palace; he lived in like a normal tent. He didn't wear silk. He wasn't really big about this fame and stuff. He was more humble, right? And so sometimes those guys you get taken advantage of also sometimes, right? But yeah, that's true. It's really crazy how to understand the history of treachery, people turning your back against you, family members, and all that different type of stuff. Any other questions or comments for anyone before we wrap up? I think Dr. Siddiq has his class in a bit. No, everyone else. So, all right. So, inshallah, next week should be a very good class. Salahuddin's going to rise to power, and then we're going to get on the edge of Jerusalem falling. And so we're going to see how that's built up, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll make dua. We ask Allah, Ya Rahman Rahim, Anta Salam. ومنك السلام تباركت يا ذو الجلال والإكرام اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم يا رحمن الرحيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask for your forgiveness. We ask you to enter us in your Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to learn from the lessons of our predecessors. We ask you to free the lands of Palestine from the oppressors, Ya Kareem, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help us here in our local community. We ask you to send down a rain upon us, Ya Rahman Rahim, out the fires, and help the innocent people who are destructed, help them to be able to reflect back to you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun mursaleen alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. May Allah bless all of you. We'll see you next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Also, we get email a few personal questions.